have cameras and who's going to be recording. Is that going to be a concern for either team? And whoever the team captains can respond. Not going to be a problem. Okay. So the first thing I would like each side to do is to introduce yourselves. And I know that you have your names on the screen, but I still would like you to introduce yourself by name, your the role that you're playing, and which, if it's defense or prosecution team. I don't have on here what your team codes are, and I cannot see that. So maybe Amy can tell me how to find that. Because when
they should have them in their name thing.
So I'm not seeing.
Okay.
I'm seeing some of them. Let me see. Hold on a second. Let me look at the list.
Let me pull up. What are your guys' team codes? KK? And what's the other one? B?
JJ.
JJ? Okay.
Okay. The only one I cannot see here, it seems to be, is Maralgu Amarsana. And I apologize again if I haven't pronounced that name correctly. I don't know what team you're affiliated with, because your name is so long, it doesn't show in the field as I can't see it in the field, and I don't know how to make this bigger.
I'm on the prosecution team and I'm team KK.
Thank you. Sorry that I'm pointing you out, but I want to make sure that I have everything clear. Thank you. The next thing I'd like to make sure that is to know what role you're playing. And I do know not just role, but who's going first and who's going last. So I know that you're listed as a prosecution attorney or defense attorney, but I don't know if you're going to do the opening or if you're going to do the closing. That's not here. And normally that's something that each of the panelists have that would show on the roster, and we don't have your rosters.
Is it easier? I can put the rosters in the chat if that's going to make everybody's life easier.
That would.
I'll throw them in there real quick. Hang on one second. JJ and KK round one. All right, those are in there if you guys want to download them.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to figure out how to. Hold on.
Should get mine updated as well.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Sorry, you guys, you're our guinea pigs. You're the first ones to do this.
And it may take us a few minutes to get it right. So I apologize for any delays. Make sure that I have everything that I need.
And while Judge Tenriero is doing that, I'm going to just reiterate that only the people that are participating in that particular part of the trial have their microphones on and their cameras on. The rest of us are going to turn our video off and our mics off, and then we should disappear so that the judge can focus on who's talking. And then when it's your turn to come up, just turn your stuff back on, and the person who's not going to be doing it anymore can turn their stuff off and should go to where they need to be.
Okay. I think I am ready to I have so many things here open. I wanted to make sure that I had the case material and everything. So I apologize. When I opened the roster, something happened where it closed out my other documents. So I apologize for that. Well, I'm trying to open this. Please let me know if anybody has any questions with regard to procedure. And I just found what I needed.
Okay.
Here.
Okay.
Okay. So if what I'd like to do is go ahead and introduce yourself as you would in a normal trial in order, so that I know who's going to be who in which role you're going to address. So for the prosecution first.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Anna Johnson, and I'm on behalf of the people. And today I will be delivering the opening argument, direct examining Alex Cifuentes, and cross-examining Avery Becker.
Thank you, Ms.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Katie Jack for the People, and today I will be directing Detective Jordan Markowitz, crossing Professor Blake Van Owen, and delivering the closing arguments.
Thank you, Ms. Jack.
Good afternoon, Judge. I'm Marfa, and I'm the prosecution attorney, and I'm crossing Perkins and directing Kuzak.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Grace Farrell, and I will be Jordan Markowitz for the People.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Jackson Bitzer, and I will be Kyle Kuzak.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Emma Carey, and I'll be Alex Cifuentes.
Thank you. And for the defense?
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury, and opposing counsel. My name is Kai Wong, and today, along with my co-counsel, I am representing Avery Becker in the matters of the state versus Avery Becker. I will be conducting the direct examination of Miss Avery Becker and the cross-examination of Detective Jordan Markowitz. Permission for my co-counsel to introduce themselves.
So granted.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury, and opposing counsel. My name is Heidi Schmid, and today I will be conducting the direct examination of Professor Blake Van Owen, the cross-examination of Kyle Kuzak, and delivering the opening statement.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. My name is Morgan Taylor, and today I'll be conducting the direct examination of Taylor Perkins, the cross-examination of Alex Cifuentes, and delivering the closing statements. Permission for our witnesses to introduce themselves?
So granted.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Paige Gillespie, and today I will be Professor Blake Van Owen.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Annabelle Swenson, and today I am Avery Becker.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Nathan Trong, and today I am Taylor Perkins.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves. What I'd like to do next is to go ahead and swear everybody in. So first of all, I'd like to swear in the team members. So while in a normal courtroom, I'd ask that you all stand. I do not want you to do that today. Stay seated, but just raise your right hand. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and the rules of the mock trial competition? Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition? Thank you. Obviously, the gallery members are not here, but they are being live streamed so that they are also privy to this mock trial. So I'm going to ask them on their honor to raise their right hand, and I'll ask the gallery members, including teachers and attorney coaches, family members and friends, everyone attending this mock trial competition, to please promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after the mock trial round. Do you so swear? I'm going to assume that they do. So scoring panels, please raise your right hand. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and the rules of the mock trial competition? Thank you. So let's go ahead and get started with the mock trial competition.
Elsa, can I jump in real quick before you get started? Now is the time for everyone to, if you're not participating in the opening, stop your video, stop your audio, and if anyone has any technical issues and needs to get in touch with me, I have put my cell phone in the chat, so feel free to text me or whatever if you need help.
Thank you, Amy.
Yes.
So at this time, everybody has gone blank, but I'm assuming there is an opening attorney. I would like to see both opening attorneys show up on the screen, please. Thank you. So first, for the prosecution, do you have any preliminary matters that need to be addressed at this time, Ms. Johnson?
I believe my co-counsel, Ms. Jack, did have preliminary matters she wanted to discuss.
Very well.
Yes, Your Honor. The people asked to remain seated during openings and closings and to display evidence on the screen prior to motions for admission. And last, Your Honor, we would ask that the court have a defendant keep their camera on during the prosecution's direct examination of Alex Cifuentes for purposes of potential identification of Avery Becker.
So granted. Go ahead.
I believe my co-counsel Kai Wong has some preliminary matters as well.
Ms. Wong, Mr. Wong?
The defense requests that all jury instructions and stipulations be published to the jury.
They are so published, I'd ask that the jury turn to the documents with the stipulations and so forth.
Furthermore, for the purposes of expediency, the defense requests that when evidence is admitted, it is constructively published to Your Honor and the jury.
It will be done. Thank you.
Also, for the sake of expediency, the defense requests that all exhibits are granted on a good faith basis for truth and accuracy, and therefore need not be presented to opposing counsel prior to presenting them to the court. We would clarify that if opposing counsel has concerns about the authenticity of an exhibit, they object accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. I would ask that the panel members take notice, but I would also ask the team members, when you're addressing a particular exhibit, that you mention it by page number so that the jury or the panel can go particularly to that page number. Is that going to be a problem? Ms. Johnson?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Schmidt?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any other preliminary matters? Ms. Johnson?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Schmidt?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, would you like to proceed at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
On a quiet, warm day in March of last year, Mackenzie Brackman was viciously stabbed in the doorway of his home. After an extended and excruciating feud with his mock trial student, the defendant Avery Becker, including Becker vandalizing the victim's vehicle, the Denver Police Department concluded that, without a doubt, Becker was the culprit in this break-in gone bad. Today, Avery Becker is charged with 1 count of murder in the first degree and 1 count of second-degree burglary. The prosecution intends to prove that Becker is in fact guilty of these crimes beyond a reasonable doubt, and the prosecution calls Detective Jordan Markowitz, Kyle Kuzak, and Alex Cifuentes to further prove this determination. Kyle Kuzak, a certified crime scene reconstruction expert, was first on the scene of this burglary gone terribly wrong. His 19 years of experience told him exactly what he needed to know: evidence of a break-in, evidence of a knife stolen from the kitchen, and the same missing knife protruding from the victim's back. Later in the trial, Kuzak will describe his method for reasoning and the specific flowchart strategy he uses to ensure accuracy and attention to detail. Detective Jordan Markowitz was next on the scene. Detective Markowitz used his 13 years of experience on the force and 7 years as a detective to do more digging at the crime scene. Detective Markowitz also is a proven expert in cell phone tracking, and it is his professional opinion that the cell phone belonging to the defendant was at the scene of the crime when the crime occurred. The Ring doorbells, doubling as security cameras, placed at different entrances to the victim's house, were also brought to Detective Markowitz's attention. After recovering and reviewing the videos from the Ring doorbells, the culprit can be seen in a mask and other clothing covering the skin, entering and exiting the residence of the victim in a window correlating with the victim's estimated time of death. After compiling these troubling facts, Detective Markowitz decided to interview the friends of the defendant at Colorado High School. Alex Cifuentes, a former friend of the defendant and fellow student at Colorado High School, confirmed many of Detective Markowitz's suspicions about the defendant during their interview. Cifuentes described the defendant and the victim's troubled past, which included the defendant vandalizing the victim's vehicle after the victim released the defendant from the Colorado High School mock trial team for inattentiveness and not sufficiently participating to further benefit the team. Cifuentes also illustrated the roller coaster of highs and lows they had with the defendant, beginning with a wonderful friendship and ending with a string of text messages that Cifuentes received from the defendant, placing the defendant at the scene of the crime and showing the defendant's objective to unlawfully enter the victim's dwelling with malicious intent. Overall, this was just a break-in gone bad, fueled by the quarrel between the victim and the defendant, and although the defendant may not have initially aimed to murder the victim, the act was still committed. Throughout this trial, you will hear many mind-wiping stories and narratives about what happened that fateful March afternoon. But you will remember this: the defendant, Avery Becker, did in fact kill Mackenzie Brackman, no matter the initial intent.
Good afternoon. My name is Heidi Schmid, and today I will be representing the defendant, Avery Becker. As you know, on March 6, 2020, Mackenzie Brackman was found dead in his residence. Avery Becker, I'm sorry, I'm breaking up on my end. May I please restart? Good afternoon. My name is Heidi Schmid, and today I will be representing the defendant, Avery Becker. As you know, on March 6, 2020, Mackenzie Brackman was found dead in his residence. The prosecution is accusing Miss Becker of murder. Today, you will meet Avery Becker, and you will learn through herself and her friends that she's just like any other teenager. In fact, on the day of the murder, Miss Becker skipped school with her best friend, a normal teenage thing to do. The victim, Mackenzie Brackman, was her mock trial coach. Every person has had that one teacher whom you just didn't quite click with. Mackenzie Brackman was that for Avery Becker. Miss Becker loved mock trial. Needless to say, high school is not exactly an easy environment, but mock trial was the one place where Avery Becker thrived. Many witnesses today will testify that Miss Becker was good at mock trial as well, receiving awards for Best Attorney and Best Closer at regionals. Sadly, this came with repercussions because Coach Brackman did not believe that she deserved any of her well-earned awards. This scrutiny resulted in an argument between the teacher and student. After this argument, feeling understandably angry and embarrassed, Avery Becker wrote on the victim's car. She wrote Worst Attorney Award with what she thought was a dry erase marker. A stupid teenage mistake. Think back to a time when your emotions got the best of you, and you might have said or done something that you regret. Avery Becker made that same mistake and is now being tried for murder. The incident prompted Miss Becker's removal from the mock trial team. Taylor Perkins, Miss Becker's best friend, then resigned from the team as well for moral support. After getting kicked off the team, Miss Becker will tell you that she felt terrible, both for what she had done and because mock trial meant so much to her. Miss Becker will testify that she did not jeopardize her chance of getting back on the team by doing anything to Mr. Brackman besides apologizing. However, Mr. Brackman wanted no part of her apologies, even after going to his office, texting him, and offering to pay for a paint job or scrub the marker off herself. Feeling discouraged, that Thursday when Miss Becker would have been at practice, she hung out with Mr. Perkins instead. They even saw other mock trial team members while getting dinner. Sometime that night, March 5th, 2020, Miss Becker lost her phone, which prompted her to skip school on March 6th, 2020, to look for that phone with Mr. Perkins. The prosecution believes that Avery Becker's anger at Mr. Brackman led her to break into the residence of and ultimately kill him. However, the defense will prove that the prosecution came to this conclusion through corrupted evidence, lost suspects, and biases. You will hear from our expert, Blake Van Owen, that Avery Becker is now being charged of murder because the prosecution wanted to come to an easy conclusion. She will testify that to get to the easy conclusion, the police and detectives proceeded with a sloppy investigation. An investigation that blames a child who will testify that she laments her terrible relationship with Mr. Brackman. Avery Becker sure didn't like Mackenzie Brackman, but will attest that she was not there at the time of the murder, did not even know where he lived, and was with her best friend at the time. Today, you will hear from 3 defense witnesses. Again, Professor Van Owen, an expert in police practices, cell tower analysis, and crime scene reconstruction, who will discuss oversights, loopholes, and doubt in the prosecution's case. Taylor Perkins, the defendant's best friend and who she was with at the time of the murder. And finally, Avery Becker, the defendant, who will testify to her side of the case. During this trial, please listen to the faults in the prosecution's case presented by the defense and think how a teenager's future is at stake. By the end of this case, the defense will prove that there's too much doubt to convict this child, and that the prosecution came to this conclusion not because it was right, but because it was easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. Ms. Johnson, will you be proceeding with the first witness?
I will not. My co-counsel, Ms. Jack, will be proceeding.
Thank you. Ms. Jack, are you ready to proceed with your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution calls Detective Jordan Markowitz to the stand.
Thank you.
Hello, can you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Jordan Markowitz, Markowitz.
Thank you, Detective Markowitz. What do you do for a living?
I'm a homicide detective with the Denver Police Department.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been with the Denver Police Department for around 13 years, and I've been a detective for 7 years.
Do you have any special training related to your line of work?
Yes, I have specialized training and experience with cell phones. I have a cell phone technology and forensic data recovery certification from the American Academy of Law Enforcement.
How did you get that certification?
I had to complete a 3-day training course and pass a certification test.
What did you learn from your training?
Well, I learned about the types of cell phone data and records that can be obtained, how to use forensic software such as the Celebrate system to download information from a cell phone, how to acquire and interpret cellular records, and how to obtain and interpret cell tower data.
Has this training been relevant to your work?
Yes, I've downloaded the contents of literally hundreds of cell phones. I also use cell tower data on a regular basis.
How many cases have you had where you had to use cell phone data?
I've used cell phone data in over 50 cases.
Your Honor, at this time, I tender Detective Jordan Markowitz as a qualified expert witness in the field of cell phone and cell tower data interpretation.
Any objection?
Your Honor, there is no objection.
Thank you, counsel. The witness is so accepted as an expert witness.
How did you get involved in today's case?
I was assigned this case in March of 2020.
Did you go to the scene of the crime?
Yes, I did. In fact, I was actually one of the first people to arrive.
Was the crime scene at 444 South Flower Street in the city of Denver, state of Colorado?
Yes.
What did you see when you arrived at the scene?
Well, the front door was open, and the victim was face down just inside the residence in a pool of blood. A large knife was not too far from the body.
Permission to share my screen of what has previously been marked as Exhibit 1.
Granted.
Do you recognize this?
Yes.
How do you recognize this?
Well, this is a picture of the victim's body at the scene.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the victim at the scene?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the prosecution moves to admit Exhibit 1 into evidence.
And Exhibit 1 is page what of the mock trial booklet?
It's page 58, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. The exhibit is so admitted.
Detective Markowitz, can you please describe the victim?
Yes, so the victim's shirt was blood-soaked around the upper left back shoulder area, and it was obvious that the victim had been stabbed. And from the angle of the body, it appeared that the victim had most likely fallen to the ground while trying to leave the residence.
What else did you notice of the scene of the crime?
Well, I saw a chair had been knocked over. There were scuff marks by the back entrance, and there was a broken plate on the floor. Those are obvious and clear signs of struggle.
Did you notice anything else?
Yes, there's an open knife drawer and a knife block with an empty slot.
Okay, returning to the victim, did you recognize the victim when you saw him?
Well, I didn't immediately recognize him, but once I saw the victim's ID, I knew who it was. The victim was a criminal defense attorney named Mackenzie Brackman.
You mentioned finding Brackman's ID. Did he have anything else on him at the time?
Yes, his cell phone was with him.
Did you access the contents of his cell phone to aid your investigation?
Yes, so I started by downloading the contents of Brackman's phone, and I found a tremendous number of texts and emails related to mock trial, and he was a high school mock trial coach.
Did you take Brackman's involvement with mock trial into consideration during your investigation?
Yes, I reached out to the school and got contact information for all of the students on the team.
Did you reach out to any of the students?
Yes, I spoke with a student named Alex Cifuentes who told me that another student on the team had texted something about a plan to trash Brackman's house.
Did you conduct a proper interview with Cifuentes?
Yes, I had Alex Cifuentes and Cifuentes' parents come to headquarters to conduct a full interview.
What did you learn during the interview?
Well, it turned out that the other student was a senior on the mock trial team named Avery Becker, who did not have a good experience with Brackman.
What had previously happened between Brackman and Becker?
Well, Brackman had recently kicked Becker off the mock trial team after she vandalized Brackman's car. Becker then sent a text to Cifuentes, who was also in the mock trial team, pleading with Cifuentes for help getting back on the team.
And did Cifuentes agree to help?
No, Cifuentes texted back that Brackman wouldn't budge. Becker responded that they were going to trash Brackman's house while Brackman was at work.
Did you see the texts?
Well, Cifuentes didn't bring the phone to the interview, so I asked him to send me screenshots of the text conversation with Becker. Cifuentes sent me the screenshots the next day.
Permission to share my screen of what has previously been marked as Exhibit 14.
So granted.
All right, I'm showing you Exhibit 14. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
How do you recognize this?
Well, these are the screenshots of the text conversation between Cifuentes and Becker.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of that conversation?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the prosecution moves to admit Exhibit 14 into evidence. It's on page 71 and page 72.
Thank you, counsel. Any objection, Mr. Wong?
Your Honor, I do have an objection. Under Rule 403, the prejudicial of this value of this exhibit seeks to turn the jury against Miss Avery Becker with these hateful messages.
Any response?
Yes, Your Honor. We're presenting them because it's evidence of Avery Becker having a plan to trash Brackman's house. So it should allow for the jury to recognize Avery's faults in relation to today's case.
Thank you, counsel. The exhibit will be admitted into evidence.
What do these texts indicate about Becker's plans?
Well, they indicate that Becker planned to break and trash Brackman's house as a form of retaliation.
Did you contact Avery Becker after speaking with Cifuentes?
Well, yes, I immediately contacted her, but I was told that I would have to communicate with her through her lawyer.
Did you communicate with her attorney?
Yes, after obtaining a warrant to search Becker's phone, her attorney provided me with the phone number.
What did you do next?
I got a court order to obtain account records from Becker's phone. Her attorney provided, and also cell tower records, or CDRs, for March 6th of 2020.
Why did you do that?
Well, I wanted to track the location of the phone.
What information do CDRs provide?
Well, generally, the record shows things like the date and time of communication, whether it was a call or text message, and if it was a call, how long it lasted. Additionally, this is the critical part, the record also identifies the cell tower with which the cell phone was communicating, including the specific antenna on the tower.
Permission to share my screen of what has previously been marked as Exhibit 16.
So granted.
All right, I'm showing you Exhibit 16. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
How do you recognize this?
This is an image of the CDR data that shows the location of the cell towers that Becker's phone communicated with on March 6th and the time leading up to the homicide. It also depicts what I believe to be the most likely route that Becker took to Brackman's house.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of that data?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the prosecution moves to admit Exhibit 16 into evidence.
Mr. Wong, any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. The exhibit is so admitted.
What did you learn about Becker's phone's location?
So what the CDR data indicates is that Becker was at home somewhere between 12:45 and 12:50, then left and drove towards Brackman's house, traveling most likely along Rock Creek Parkway at 12:55 p.m. Then from 1:05 to 1:17, Becker was at Brackman's house.
What did the CDR data tell you?
Based on all the evidence we collected, it is absolutely clear that Avery Becker went to Mackenzie Brackman's house on Friday, March 6, 2020.
And what was it that ultimately led you to charge Avery Becker for this crime?
Well, Becker did have a bad relationship with Brackman prior to the murder, and based on the screenshots I obtained from Cifuentes' phone, Becker had planned to trash Brackman's house. The reliable CDR data I collected from the day of the murder shows Becker traveling to Brackman's house and places her at the scene of the crime.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Wong, do you have any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
Proceed.
Detective Markowitz, photos that you took at the photos at the crime scene depicting blood spatter were corrupted, right?
Yes, but this didn't affect the investigation at all.
Yet you still described that the blood made cast-off marks in your witness testimony.
Right.
And you're not trained in blood spatter analysis.
Well, no, but anyone can obviously see blood spatter and know what it is.
But you'll ask us to rely on your untrained opinion since we have no physical evidence of these photos.
Well, again, the victim was obviously stabbed, and the corrupted photos do not affect the investigation whatsoever.
Very well. Then let's cover your theory of what happened inside the house. When scanning the house, you said that the victim was alerted to someone breaking in.
Correct.
And that the victim then somehow lost the knife or confronted the intruder with a knife.
Right.
And they somehow lost control of the knife in a struggle with the intruder.
Yes.
And then the victim was stabbed.
Yes.
And you came to this conclusion after a brief observation of the home.
Yes.
And you are not trained in any evidence which led you to this conclusion.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
You're not trained in any evidence which led you to this conclusion.
No.
Thank you. So when you accessed Brackman's Ring account on his phone, you only downloaded camera footage.
Yes, because that was what was relevant to the scene.
But you did not download his user account records.
No, because that's not necessary.
But since we have no access to his user records, we don't know whether he had notifications on for Ring.
I guess not, but notifications are typically on for Ring.
But we don't know whether Brackman received a Ring notification on his phone, which would have alerted him to the intruder.
Well, I mean, I guess we don't know for sure, but it's pretty likely that he had him on.
Thank you. So you began your investigation of Avery Becker after meeting Alex Cifuentes.
Yes.
You suspected Avery because of the text shown to you by Alex.
Right.
But when you met Alex, he didn't bring his phone, which had those crucial texts on them.
He did not, but I still got the screenshots.
But wasn't the entire meeting between you and Alex to discuss the death of Mr. Brackman?
Right.
And you never saw those texts yourself.
No, but again, I did get the screenshots, which are of the text.
You just trusted Alex to send you accurate screenshots.
Yes.
You trusted someone who you just met.
Yes.
And you never verified those texts yourself.
No, but again, they're reliable texts.
But you must agree that there is a chance Alex faked them.
Well, no, there's not really a likely chance that Alex faked them.
But there is a possibility.
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
The question was asked in a different format. I'll allow it.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. But there must be a possibility that Alex faked them since you have not verified it yourself.
I mean, I guess you could say that, but again, it's really not likely.
That's a yes?
Sure, yes.
So, as a CDR expert, you know that if a phone is near a busy tower, it can connect to one which is further away.
Yes, but that doesn't happen very often.
But it is possible that rather than moving towards Brackman's home, Avery's phone was simply connecting to the least busy tower.
Yes, but again, that's not as likely. It doesn't happen that often.
And Detective, cell towers don't show the exact locations, but only the general area of where a phone might be.
Right. People usually have their phones on them.
And you knew when writing your testimony that you were to include all relevant information.
Yes.
But in your testimony, you never mention how large the range of a cell tower is, do you?
No.
And so Avery's phone could have been anywhere in that unspecified range while still not being inside the house.
Well, I guess, but again, that's not likely because the cell towers like track the phone.
But that's a yes.
Yes.
You also have no evidence that the phone was even with Avery at the time.
Yes, but many teenagers have their phones on them nowadays.
But there is no way to find with the evidence from your CDRs that Avery or even Avery's phone was firmly inside of Mr. Brackman's house.
Well, I guess no, not necessarily because the cell tower records show that the phone traveled basically to Brackman's house.
It traveled in the direction of Mr. Brackman's house.
Right.
So you say that it's suspicious that Becker's phone shut off after 1,320 hours?
Right.
You claim it's consistent with someone terminating their phone to get rid of evidence.
Yes.
Yet, phones can shut off for numerous reasons, right, Detective?
Yes, but it's just almost like it's too coincidental that it shut off like right after the murder.
But you just chose only one possibility to believe.
Well, not necessarily because it shut off right after the murder and then it like didn't turn back on. So it's not really it doesn't really make sense that she would have just turned off her phone and then she just wouldn't turn it back on.
But you never found the phone.
No.
Thank you. So, Detective Markowitz, you believe that good detective work requires you to follow up on all leads.
Correct.
And at the beginning of the case, you had 2 good leads, didn't you?
Correct.
You thought it could be an ex-client.
Right, but it's not.
And you also thought it could be a burglar.
Yes.
You thought this even after scanning the scene and noting that no valuable items were taken.
Right, but so, yeah.
But you didn't pursue either of these leads, did you?
No, because then they didn't really become leads anymore. I found a new lead that was more likely.
You pursued only the lead of Avery Becker.
Right, because that's the one that is the most likely.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions for this witness at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Ms. Jack, do you have any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Who will be conducting the examination of your second witness? And who will be calling them? Miss Amar Sana?
The prosecution calls Kyle Kuzak to the stand.
Thank you.
Good morning, Kyle Kuzak. Can you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Kyle Kuzak, Kuzak.
What is your current occupation?
I'm a civilian employee for the Denver Police Department, and I'm a crime scene reconstruction investigator.
How many years of experience do you have working as a crime scene reconstruction investigator?
I have 19 years of experience, and then I've investigated complex crime scenes like home invasions, burglaries, and homicides, and other things.
How long have you been working as a CSR for the Denver Police Department?
3 years.
How are you qualified as a CSR?
Oh, well, I am certified by the Colorado Bureau of Investigations as a CSR.
At this time, the prosecution moves to qualify Mr. Cusack as an expert in the crime scene reconstruction pursuant to CRE 720 and asks that he be allowed to provide expert opinion in this matter. Where did the homicide occur?
Hold on. Ms. Schmidt, do you have any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. May I please conduct a brief voir dire of the witness?
Very brief.
It is true that you have never had any education in the field of crime scene reconstruction.
Well, I am certified in that. You could consider that an education.
Please answer the question.
Well, what type of education are you asking?
I'm asking if you stated that you've ever had any education in the field of crime scene reconstruction.
I have not.
And you have never had any medical training?
No.
Or medical experience for that matter?
No.
Your Honor, I object to the witness being qualified as a CSR because under Rule 702, they require education. And because the witness has no medical training, I would like you to please restrict him from using them from admitting the autopsy report, seeing as the witness has no experience in order to testify on this field.
Ms. Amarzana?
Yes, he worked at the police department and he has 19 experience of investigation, crime, complex crime. So he is definitely qualified as an expert witness.
Thank you, counsel. I will be accepting this witness as an expert in the field.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Where did the homicide occur?
At 444 South Flower Street.
Did you visit the scene of the homicide?
Yes, after it was processed by other members of the crime lab.
Did you read and review all of the police records?
I did, and I also reviewed all of the evidence, the photographs from the scene, and 4 ring security camera videos.
Did you conduct an investigation after visiting the site of the homicide?
I did. I conducted my a 5-step investigation and used my 2 principles while conducting my work.
What are the 2 principles that got your work during an investigation?
Well, first, I assume all my cases are going to trial, so I conducted a thorough and comprehensive investigation. And then second, from the first day, I documented and organized all the evidence with a mindset of future reconstruction.
What were the process of your investigation?
Well, the first step was I used a witness tracking spreadsheet to summarize key points of information from witnesses and suspects.
What were the next steps in your investigation?
I then grew the existing organizational framework for information, evidence, and images to document relationships, lab submissions, and analysis.
After your investigation, what conclusion did you find?
Well, I noticed the conclusion that the perpetrator was matching the general height and build of the defendant.
What was the first thing the intruder did on the day of the crime?
So first they approached the victim's residence and they initially stepped on the front porch and checked the front door. And this was captured by the ring security camera.
What was the second thing they did?
Well, they then proceeded to the south side of the residence and out of the camera's range. An additional security camera on that side of the house picked up the perpetrator opening a fence gate and entering the backyard.
Your Honor, may I have the permission to share my screen?
Yes, you may.
Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize this?
I recognize this as Exhibit 12.
Your Honor, the prosecution moves to admit Exhibit 12 into evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Smith?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. The exhibit is admitted into evidence.
Can you explain what happened on Exhibit 12?
Sure. So we see the perpetrator first We can tell they left the range of the second camera, but they were then captured 10 seconds later by a second security camera at the rear door of the victim's residence. And then the video camera shows the perpetrator opening the sliding glass door and entering the residence.
Were there any fingerprints or DNA found on the gate or the back door?
No, but this is commonly expected.
Why is this commonly expected?
Well, contrary to popular belief, fingerprints and DNA are not left on every surface.
You talk about being partially able to see in Exhibit 18. What does that show in the case?
Well, we see scuff marks on the kitchen floor near the back door.
Your Honor, may I have the permission to share my screen?
Yes, you may.
Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize this?
I see the scuff marks from Exhibit 18.
Is a fair and accurate representation of that?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, the prosecution moves to admit Exhibit 18 into evidence.
Any objection?
Objection, Your Honor. Under Rule 901, the proponent must produce evidence sufficient enough to support that the item is what the proponent claims it is. The witness in question says that these scuff marks were made, in the witness statement says these scuff marks were made after the intrusion. They have no evidence to support that claim. Thank you.
That can certainly be addressed on cross-examination, counsel. I'll go ahead and admit the exhibit.
May I have the permission to proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
What do you conclude from this exhibit?
Well, I can see that there was a struggle in the kitchen immediately inside because they are very close to the back door. And the floor scuffings indicate that at least 2 individuals were engaged in a close contact in the kitchen near the back door.
Your Honor, may I have the permission to share my screen?
Yes, you may.
Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize this?
I recognize this as Exhibit 7.
Is a fair and accurate representation of that?
Yes.
What about Exhibit 8?
I do recognize this, yes.
Is a fair and accurate representation of that?
Yes.
Your Honor, the prosecution moves to admit Exhibit 7 and 8 into evidence.
Ms. Schmidt?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 7 and 8 will be admitted into evidence.
What do you see from Exhibit 7?
Well, I see a kitchen drawer is open with knives and kitchen utensils.
Do you believe a knife from the drawer was the murder weapon?
I don't.
What do you believe the murder weapon was?
Well, from Exhibit 8, we can see there's a knife missing from the knife block. I believe this was the knife used to kill Brackman.
What evidence supports your claim here?
Well, the knife found with the body seen in Exhibit 5 fits the size and space in the knife block.
Can you please recap and state what you think occurred from the evidence and investigation?
So the victim was alerted by the Ring security system as the intruder approached the front door and then went around to the back of the residence.
What happened next?
Well, the victim initially looked for a knife in the drawer, but then they just grabbed the knife from the knife block.
Did the intruder enter the residence?
Yes, they entered through the back door, and then the 2 individuals struggled over the knife. And the struggle moved to the kitchen table.
How do you know the struggle moved to the kitchen table?
Well, we see scuff marks on the floor.
How did the stabbing then occur?
So the intruder disarmed the victim and obtained the victim's knife. The stabbing then occurred in the upper back or shoulder area.
How can you be sure they were stabbed in the back area?
So based off the evidence, we know Brackman would have been alerted by the Ring doorbells and sound of his back door opening. This would then mean the perpetrator and victim were in close proximity, engaged with each other as the perpetrator reached over him and stabbed him in the back.
What is your final conclusion?
Based on the facts and data I had, this was a planned burglary.
Your Honor, asked and answered.
Could you clarify, please, Ms. Schmidt?
Your Honor, the witness in question has just gone over what all of his conclusions were. It is not necessary for her to ask what his final conclusions were. He's already testified on that point.
Ms. Amarsana?
The final conclusion is important because it just provides us with the information about what exactly happened from his knowledge.
Will he be testifying to something other than what he's already testified his conclusions are?
No, Your Honor.
The objection is granted and the witness has already testified to that information. Go ahead. Ask your next question.
Oh, no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Cross-examination, Ms. Schmidt?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Cusack, or Mr. Cusack. You are familiar with the defense's expert witness, Blake Van Owen.
Yes, I am.
You believe you are more qualified than her in crime scene reconstruction.
Yes, I do, because I am actually went to the scene of the crime and am not being paid by the defendant.
Thank you. And you don't agree with her conclusions regarding the crime scene?
No, I do not.
You decided this after already having the bias that you are a superior CSR.
Not necessarily. I'm concluding this based off facts and evidence.
I'm asking about the timing, not about the facts and evidence. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question then?
You decided that you don't agree with her conclusion after already having the bias that you are a superior CSR.
Sure, yes.
And you wrote a witness and evidence tracking sheet as well as a flow chart of the crime scene.
Yes.
Your Honor, permission to share my screen?
Yes, go ahead.
And this is that document.
Oh, yes, this is.
This is a part of the ordinary scope of your business.
Correct.
It was made around the time of the crime?
Right, during the investigation.
Your Honor, I move to admit Exhibit 17 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
The exhibit will be admitted into evidence.
By observing Exhibit 17, you interviewed the CHS mock trial team member Brandon Digby.
Yes, I did.
You had an interview with Brandon that you did not disclose anywhere in this trial.
I don't fully recall at the moment, but yes, I did.
And in Exhibit 17, you included a third suspect.
Correct. Well, technically, on the witness tracking sheet, we see a suspect 1 and 2.
You also see a S3, correct?
Yes, we do.
Who was it?
I believe in this part, it is Blair Robbins Rollins.
You did not provide any information on the third suspect anywhere in this trial.
No, I do not.
And to your knowledge, no one else on the prosecution provided any information on the third suspect.
No, they didn't.
Thank you. Now moving on to the crime scene. Your theory for a struggle for the weapon incorporates scuff marks on the victim's kitchen floor.
Yes.
And there is a possibility that the marks were previously on the floor?
Yes, and there is also a possibility they concurred during the crime.
And your theory requires the Ring doorbell alerts to have been heard?
Not necessarily, no.
But you said it's most likely that they had to be heard, correct?
Most likely, yes, but they could have also heard the door opening or the intruder on their property, and the same situation could have unfolded and would have.
Thank you. Thank you. And it is possible that the victim may have not heard the notifications because they were turned off or he did not have his phone on him?
It's possible, but also improbable based off the ring software.
And you don't claim to check if the notifications were on or if the phone was on the victim, correct?
No, I have not.
And photos of the crime scene you used have since been corrupted?
Yes, they were corrupted after I first had seen them and already started investigating.
Thank you. But regardless, you used corrupted evidence in your final investigation.
In my final investigation, yes, but I had also investigated when they weren't corrupted.
Thank you. And now the knife used did not match the set in the block.
No, it did not.
And you say that the knife specifically had to come from the block.
Well, yes, because we can see it fits the correct size and it fits the size.
But because it was not a perfect match, there is a slight possibility that the intruder brought the knife.
A slight possibility, yes.
So factoring in the marks, notifications, and knife, you did have to speculate most of your conclusion.
Most of my conclusion isn't speculated, but you could say parts are.
So I'm sorry, let me rephrase. You did have to make educated guesses on most of your conclusion.
And the most probable conclusions based off the information we had.
Please answer the question.
Could you repeat it then, please?
Yes, so you had to make educated guesses for most of your conclusion.
I wouldn't necessarily consider them an educated guess, but technically, yes.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. The witness is excused. Ms. Johnson, will you call your next witness?
Yes, the people call Alex Cifuentes to the stand.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Cifuentes. Will you please state your name for the record?
Alex Cifuentes.
And will you please spell your name for the record?
Alexsifuentes.
What high school do you go to?
I go to Colorado High School.
And what activity do you do at Colorado High School?
I participate in mock trial.
Who is Mackenzie Brackman?
He was our mock trial coach.
And how did you feel about his death?
I thought it was horrible. I mean, Coach Brackman was such a good teacher. He was so helpful, and he really wanted all of us to succeed. And then when I heard it could have been Avery, it kind of shocked me because she's my friend. But, you know, after hearing everything, I think that she did it. It's just a lot to process.
Let's talk about the defendant, Avery Becker. How well did you know Becker?
Pretty well. I mean, we were on mock trial for all 4 years together, so.
At this time, the people ask that the defendant, Avery Becker, turn their camera on for identification purposes. Ms. Cifuentes,
Ms. Becker, could you turn your camera on?
Ms. Becker has turned her camera on.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Ms. Cifuentes, could you please identify Ms. Becker by describing an article of clothing they are wearing?
Yes, Avery is wearing a gray sweater.
Thank you. Let the record reflect identification of the defendant subject to cross-examination. What was the defendant's usual role on the mock trial team?
Avery was usually an attorney. However, she also played several witness roles throughout the years. And on stand, she could make you believe everything she said was completely true. She was really good at it.
How did the defendant treat mock trial competitions?
Avery was really good and smart at competitions. She was really quick thinking, which got her to place or win a lot of awards at the competitions.
How did the defendant treat mock trial practices?
At practices, she was typically late. She was always on her phone. She never practiced or prepared any of her cases beforehand. And she overall just wasn't great. For those reasons, she didn't really have a great relationship with our coach either.
Why do you think the defendant was good at competition but not good at practice?
Because, as I said earlier, Avery was really good at making stuff up and lying on the spot. So she would get away with it at competitions, but it put the team in a constant state of anxiety since we had no idea what her moves were going to be.
Objection, Your Honor. Character evidence.
I'm sorry, counsel, I did not hear what you said.
Sorry, Your Honor. Objection, improper character evidence.
Any argument?
Statement against a party opponent.
I'm sorry, I did not hear what you said.
Oh, I apologize. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay. My response is exception, statement against a party opponent.
Okay. Any response?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you.
May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Ms. Cifuentes, how would you describe your relationship with the defendant, Ms. Becker?
We were great friends in mock trial, and Avery was really good at it. She was the one who even convinced me to try out for mock trial. Although it did annoy me because Avery wouldn't really practice or participate that much, so it would make me nervous.
Where did you see the defendant outside of mock trial?
I saw Avery at the Fry Shack restaurant sometimes. A lot of students and mock trial kids go there from my high school. And then I went there the day before Coach Brackman was murdered.
Who else did you recognize from the Fry Shack from mock trial on that day?
I noticed Avery and also Taylor Perkins were there.
What was Avery's mood? Was she still mad about being kicked off the team?
She still seemed a little bit disappointed, but she was really nice to me and was in a relatively good mood when we spoke. And from our conversations previously, though, it did seem like she still had something planned for Coach Brackman.
What else did you, the defendant, and Perkins do at the Fry Shack?
We just talked for a little bit, and Avery actually did show me a game on her phone. She even let me play it for a little bit, which was really nice.
Coming back to the defendant's poor mock trial behavior, how did Coach Brackman respond to the defendant not pulling their weight at mock trial?
Yes, Coach Brackman frequently got frustrated with Avery for being late, to the point where he even demoted her to the B team.
And how did Avery react to that negativity?
Avery was pretty enraged. She not only got her friend Taylor Perkins to step down from his spot to try and get back on the A team, but she also took a permanent marker from school and went out to Coach Brackman's car and wrote worst attorney award on the hood of it. And that did get her permanently kicked off the team.
And finally, when the defendant contacted you after the incident with the car, what did they tell you?
They texted me and they said that they were really mad at Coach Brackman and that they were going to go to his house while he was at work and trash the place.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Ms. Taylor?
Yes, Your Honor. May I perform a cross-examination of the witness?
Yes, you may. Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Fuentes. My name is Morgan Taylor. Oh, I'm sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Morgan Taylor, and I'm representing Avery Becker. Mr. Brackman was your mock trial coach.
Yes.
And you looked up to him?
Yes, he was really great and wanted all of us to succeed. I really liked the way he taught us.
You really respected him?
Yes, I did respect him.
And you and Avery Becker were on mock trial together?
Yes.
She was the original reason you joined the team?
Mm-hmm.
And you and Avery did mock trial together for 3 full years?
Yes, we did.
You spend a lot of time on mock trial, Ms. Fuentes.
Yes, I take mock trial very seriously and I like to prepare a lot. I like to get ready a lot. I love this.
Avery didn't, though.
No, she did not.
You did well at mock trial?
Yes, I'd say Avery and I were equally skilled.
Looking at the points and the awards, though, Avery Becker did better.
In competition, I would say yes, but I understand that mock trial isn't always fair, so she did get a lot of luck on her side, I believe.
You describe Avery Becker as your best friend.
Yes, I would consider her one of my closest friends, yes.
And yet you think that she didn't necessarily deserve her accolades?
No, I think everybody saw that Avery didn't participate as much and she didn't prepare as much as everyone else did. So I think that she got a lot of luck. Yes, and I said that earlier.
Thank you, Ms. Fuentes. In spite of this odd relationship, Avery texted you about getting back onto the team.
Yes, because we're friends, she texted me.
And you and Avery both know the basics of confession and evidence.
Yes.
And with Avery's knowledge of this, she decided to text you a full printable confession.
Confession? I mean, she was just saying how she was feeling. I wouldn't say it was like her confession. She was confiding in a friend.
Ms. Fuentes, according to your testimony, she texted you about planning on trashing Mr. Brackman's house. Is that correct?
Yes, she did do that.
Okay. That is a confession to plan on trashing his house. So she did text you a full confession.
Possibly, yeah. I guess you could say it like that, but.
Yes, I am. And the number labeled as Avery confessed to planning on trashing Mr. Brackman's house later that day.
Yes.
You brought screenshots of these texts to the police.
I actually forgot my phone when I went to the investigation, but I did send screenshots afterwards.
You neglected to bring your phone in after this interview.
No, I did not. I actually told them I could bring it, but they said that that wasn't necessary.
Despite what they said, you still didn't bring in the phone after this interview.
I did not, because they told me that I could just send screenshots and I trusted them.
You know the importance of evidence, Ms. Fuentes.
Yes, and they told me that that would be enough.
But using your own judgment, you could determine that bringing in your phone would give more validatable evidence.
Possibly, but I think this was enough.
Okay, Ms. Fuentes, these texts have no timestamp.
I believe they do.
Sorry, Ms. Fuentes, I'll clarify. The texts may have a time in the corner, but they do not have a time as to the date that they were sent.
No.
And had you brought your phone in, that would have given you the ability to verify the day that they were sent.
Possibly, I'm not quite sure.
Would you like me to clarify the question, or are you not sure on the circumstances?
I'm not sure on the circumstances. What I showed them was what they would have seen anyways if I had brought my phone in.
Actually, Ms. Fuentes, we could have verified the day that they were sent had you brought your physical phone in, but it's all right, we can move on. The phone they were received on, your phone, has now been conveniently traded in.
Yes, I got a new phone a couple months ago.
And there's no record left of these text messages except for the screenshots you sent in.
Yes, I believe, yeah, that's true.
There is no other way to verify these text messages other than the screenshots you gave and your word.
Yes, and my word, which I hold very highly, as I do take my trial very seriously, and I wouldn't lie because I know the consequences of doing that. So yeah.
Yes, Mr. Fuentes, I know you're under oath, and I didn't mean any disrespect by that. I was merely stating the facts of these circumstances. Now, I'd like to move on. You saw Avery at the Fry Shack on Thursday, March 5th.
I did.
And you had a conversation with her?
Yes.
She let you play on her phone?
Yes, she did.
You were in possession of her phone the evening of March 5th.
For that moment that she let me play on it, yes, I was in possession of it, but I was with her at the time.
Yes. Are you aware that Taylor will testify that Avery went to the bathroom and left you at the table?
I'm not aware of that.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you, Ms. Fuentes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ms. Taylor. Any redirect, Ms. Johnson?
No, Your Honor.
Does the prosecution rest?
Yes, Your Honor, the prosecution rests.
Is the defense ready to put on their case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Schmidt, would you call your first witness then?
Your Honor, I call Professor Blake Van Owen to the stand.
Professor Van Owen?
Hello, Your Honor.
Hello.
Good afternoon. May you please state your name for the record?
I'm Professor Blake Van Owen.
And what is your current occupation?
I am a former police officer with the Aurora Police Department, a private investigator, and a professor at CU Denver, and have been a professor there for 5 years.
Thank you. Now, how does your former police work influence you as a PI?
Working as a police officer, I know the system inside and out, and I deal with police officers every day during my job as a PI.
Great. And what are your qualifications for being in this trial?
I have been accepted as a defense expert in the U.S. District Courts in 4 states. I've been accepted as an expert in crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, and general police practices over 5 times each. I teach a course in police procedures, and I have my master's degree in criminal justice from Ashford University.
Your Honor, I move to qualify Professor Blake Van Owen as an expert in crime scene reconstruction, police practices, and cell tower analysis.
Thank you. Any objections?
No objections, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Jack.
Great.
The witness will be accepted as an expert.
Thank you. Now, what do you normally do on a case like this?
I look over all of the police investigations and all of the evidence that they received, and I draw my own conclusions based on what I find.
And was it necessary for you to visit the crime scene?
No, I am an expert in police practices. However, I do not do the police's job for them. I only study their practices and look over their investigations. In this case, after looking over the police's investigation, I was able to find another potential suspect, Blair Rollins, whom the police did not even consider.
Great. And who is Blair Rollins?
He is another student at Colorado High School.
And why is he another potential suspect?
Jonathan Rollins, Blair's father, was convicted after his trial, which Mackenzie Brackman was his lawyer for. Blair Rollins disappeared right after the murder and is still to be found. Blair is also the same size of both Avery and Brackman, making it hard to decipher who is who from the Ring Alert videos.
Permission to share my screen, Your Honor.
So granted.
I'm now showing you what has been marked as Exhibit 20. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do. It is my report that I made for this case.
And was this document prepared in the ordinary scope of your business?
Yes, I make a report like this for each case I work on.
And where are documents like this stored and retrieved from after they are prepared?
I store and retrieve them from my place of business.
Thank you. And when would this document have been made?
At the time following directly after the murder, throughout my investigation.
Your Honor, I move to admit Exhibit 20 into evidence.
Ms. Jack, do you have any objections?
No objections, Your Honor.
The exhibit is so admitted.
Great. Now, as described in this report, where was Ms. Becker's phone on March 6, 2020?
In my report, I relay that it connected to the cell tower nearest Brackman's house, and specifically to the closest third of that tower to Brackman's house. However, we don't know what area inside the sector the calls were coming from.
So was the phone definitely at or near Mr. Brackman's residence?
There's no way to say for sure.
As I detail in my report, the arc of that sector is 12.6 miles long, and the area that sector covers is approximately 38 square miles.
And does this mean that Avery Becker was at or near Mr. Brackman's residence?
Again, there's absolutely no way to say for sure. We can't even say specifically where the phone was at that time because it could have been anywhere within those 38 square miles. And even if we did, I detail in my report that Avery claims to have not had her phone on her at this time. So no matter the location of the phone itself, Avery was not with it.
Great. Now moving on to the witnesses, why did you try to interview the prosecution's witness, Alex Cifuentes?
I'm simply doing a good job as a private investigator. As a good investigator, you have to look at all sides and all possibilities. Therefore, I had to hear from the prosecution's key witness, and Alex Cifuentes' perspective was one of the main possibilities and perspectives I was interested in.
And what information did you get regarding Alex?
I got nothing specifically from Alex, but I did learn that he was friends with Blair Rollins. And I did learn that he had shared screenshots with Detective Markowitz. And from what I heard, from what I investigated and found in my investigations, there was no action taken to make sure that they were 100% accurate.
And why do you believe that the screenshots may not be accurate?
Well, because Detective Markowitz didn't ask for the phone, there's absolutely no way we can verify them. And it seems kind of suspicious that Alex Cifuentes didn't bring his phone on him, seeing as Markowitz himself claims that it's attached to every teenager.
Great. Moving on to the investigation itself, what is your opinion on the prosecution's crime scene reconstruction?
I think that their crime scene reconstruction was very rushed. They automatically assumed that the scuff marks by the back door were because of a struggle between the victim and Avery Becker. However, scuff marks cannot be carbon dated. Therefore, they could have been made at any point prior to the incident. And they also claimed that the doorbell would have alerted Mackenzie Brackman of the attacker. However, we don't know if Mackenzie Brackman had his phone on him at this time. We don't know if the alerts were set. We don't know if his volume was on, so he could have easily missed it. However, all of this doesn't even matter because the prosecution does not provide enough sufficient evidence to even say that Avery Becker was at the scene of the crime at the time.
Great. And what are your thoughts on the police's cell tower investigation?
Also very shoddy. They did not obtain cell phone data from anyone but Avery Becker's phone. And for instance, if they had obtained data from Taylor Perkins' phone, they would have found that Avery could have possibly been alongside Taylor, not at Brackman's house. They also only obtained records from a limited time frame, only from the day of the murder. So we don't know where the phone was prior to this day or after the murder itself.
Great. And in your witness statement, you called the police's investigation sloppy. What is your reasoning for this statement?
I believe that they came to the easy conclusion. They found one suspect and focused on all of the evidence that would directly incriminate that suspect. And they used corrupted evidence in their investigations to prove it. Along with that, they did not look into other very viable suspects.
Thank you. Now, just one final question. What is your opinion on the defendant?
I do not believe that there is enough evidence to properly convict Avery Becker of this crime. We can't even say that she was with her phone the day of the murder, let alone say that the phone was at Brackman's house that day. That would be the only thing being able to put her at the scene of the crime, which they didn't even do. So I don't believe that we can convict Avery Becker.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed, Ms. Jack.
Good evening, Professor Van Owen.
Good evening.
You started your career in law enforcement with your Aurora Police Department, correct?
Correct.
But you had to leave that job, right? Because you injured a young woman of color during an arrest.
Yes, using a completely legal use of force.
Okay. And she sued the APD because of the incident, correct?
Correct.
And she sued you individually?
She did.
So you became a private investigator, correct?
Not because she sued me, but I did become a private investigator.
You became a private investigator because you had to leave your job for the APD, correct?
I left my job with the APD because I didn't align with the values that job entailed.
Okay. But it was also, to clarify, because you injured a young woman of color during an arrest, right?
Not in my opinion. I didn't leave due to that incident.
Okay. And now in your field of private investigation, you charge $225 per hour for research, writing, and investigative work.
Relevance.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. So I'm asking Blake Van Owen about their job currently and what they're being paid in order to be here and to work on this case is relevant to their job.
Your Honor, may I please respond to counsel?
Yes.
It is no secret that any expert witness gets paid to do their job. It is their profession, so naturally she will get paid. It is not relevant to how she did her job or the job that she did. It's no secret that any person gets paid to do their profession.
Objection is overruled. Proceed, counsel.
I can re-ask the question. You charge $225 per hour for research, writing, and investigative work, correct?
Correct.
And you charge $450 per hour for deposition and court testimony. Do you not?
Correct.
All right. And you expect to make $8,000 for your work on this case?
I expect to make a little over 7,000. I don't know if it's 8,000 specifically.
Okay. And you also testify as a defense expert, don't you?
Yes, I'm on the defense currently.
In fact, you've only testified as a defense expert.
Yes, not by choice per se, but it's just they've been the ones to ask for my services.
Okay. And for your work as an expert, you do get paid, correct?
Correct. It's my job.
Okay. Now, regarding your work on the case, your job was to review the work of Detective Jordan Markowitz and Kyle Kuzak, right?
Correct.
And Detective Markowitz went to the scene of a crime, right?
Correct.
As did Kyle Kuzak.
Correct.
But you never went to the scene of a crime.
No, it's not my job to. And by the time I was brought in on the case, the crime scene had been cleaned up.
Okay. Now let's discuss some details of the case. You believe that the knife was brought to the scene of a crime, right?
I do.
Do you have any evidence of that?
No, however, there's no evidence to say that the knife was already in the house that was used to kill Brackman.
Okay, thank you. But just to clarify, your answer to that question was no, right? Okay.
Asked and answered. Proceed, counsel.
Can you see a knife in any of the security footage of the intruder entering the residence?
No.
All right. But there was an empty slot in the knife block in Brackman's kitchen, correct?
Yes, that didn't match that knife that was used.
Why do you say that it didn't match the knife?
Because it was from a different company and did not.
Objection, Your Honor. Improper cross-examination. Cross-examination questions should be leading.
Counsel, any response?
I can rephrase the question, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
But the knife was the size of the slot, correct?
Yes, but it didn't match the type or the company of the rest of the knives in the block.
Okay. But there was also an open knife drawer at the scene of the crime, right?
Correct.
Does your theory of the crime account for that?
No.
Okay. Now let's discuss how you think the murder weapon was used. You believe that Brackman was sitting down at the kitchen table when he was stabbed, right?
I think it's very possible.
Okay. And this would mean that he was completely unaware of the intruder entering his residence, correct?
Again, very possible.
Okay. But he had a Ring doorbell, right?
Yes.
And those doorbells send notifications when there's movement outside the house.
Objection. Speculation.
Response, counsel?
This is not speculation, Your Honor. I'm simply asking about what Ring doorbells are meant to do.
Your Honor, may I respond to counsel?
Yes.
She's asking if they sent an alert However, no one has checked the alerts to see if they are on, so the Ring doorbell alert may have not been sent.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Briefly.
I'm asking generally, do Ring doorbells send notifications when there's movement outside of the house? Is that a function of a Ring doorbell?
I'll overrule the objection. You may go ahead and answer.
That is a function of the Ring doorbell, but we don't know if Brackman had set that in place because his phone was never admitted into physical evidence by Detective Markowitz.
And when the intruder entered the house, they went to the front door and the back door, correct?
Correct.
Which means that had the notifications been on, Brackman would have received multiple, correct?
Possibly.
Okay. The intruder also made a sound when entering through the back door, right?
Correct.
So if Brackman received those notifications or heard the intruder entering the back door, it would not have made sense for him to stay seated at the kitchen table, correct?
If that was the case. However, we do not know if that was the case.
Now let's discuss the cell tower data collected by Markowitz. Cell phones connect to a tower that provides the best signal, correct?
Correct.
And that's often the closest one, right?
Not always.
I'm asking you, is it often the closest one?
Sometimes, yes, not always.
Okay. And on the day of the murder, Avery Becker's phone connected to the towers that they would have had she traveled to Brackman's house, correct?
Has she traveled in the direction of Brackman's house?
Okay. And just to clarify, a phone doesn't connect to the nearest tower if it's in a busy area, correct?
If the signal is busy, however, if it's just simply in a busy area, it could still connect.
And we are dealing with a residential area, right?
Yes, we are.
All right. So now let's discuss your alternate theory of the case. Your idea is that Blair Rollins was the one who killed Brackman, right?
Correct.
And in order for this to be true, you think that Rollins had Becker's phone on the day of the murder?
It's possible.
Do you have any evidence to support your claim that Rollins had Becker's phone?
No, I don't have the burden of proof, so I don't need that.
Okay. Do you have any evidence to suggest that Rollins was at the Fry Shack when Becker supposedly lost their phone?
No, however, if he was friends with Alex, he could have been there.
Do you have any evidence indicating Rollins' location on the day of the murder?
No, all I know is that he wasn't at school.
All right. And you don't have any evidence, therefore, of Rollins committing the crime, do you?
Objection asked and answered.
Response?
I haven't asked this question yet. I'm asking about if this witness has any evidence to support the claim that she's making. I've asked about details of it, but I haven't asked more generally.
Ms. Schmidt, do you have any reply?
I'll let counsel proceed.
Proceed, counsel.
So do you have any evidence to suggest that Rollins committed the crime?
No, but I also do not have enough evidence to rule him out.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. The witness is excused. The next witness, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Avery Becker to the stand.
Ms. Becker?
Hi.
Mr. Wang, do you want to proceed?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Could you please introduce yourself to the court?
Hi, my name is Avery Becker. I graduated from Colorado High School.
And why are you here today, Ms. Becker?
I'm being wrongfully accused of murdering my mock trial coach.
Could you tell us about your involvement with mock trial?
Of course, I loved mock trial. It was everything in my high school career, and Mr. Brackman was the coach.
And why did you originally decide to join mock trial?
I joined with my best friend Taylor. It seemed like a fun thing to do after school, and it definitely was. I loved it.
And could you tell us a bit about your relationship with Taylor Perkins?
Taylor's my best friend. Yeah, we do everything together. He's awesome.
And what did you think of the coach, Mr. Brackman?
We constantly fought. He didn't like me, and I didn't really like him.
Why was that?
He didn't like the way that I prepared for mock trial, and I didn't necessarily feel I needed to do any more preparation than I already did. So we bumped heads over that.
How did you usually perform in mock trial?
Oh, I was good at mock trial. I got the best closing award and the best attorney award at regionals. So again, I don't understand why Brockman was always on my case because I performed really well for my team.
Thank you, Avery. And were you on mock trial for all of high school?
No, I actually wasn't. I was asked to leave the team after an incident.
What was that incident?
Gosh, okay, it's actually really embarrassing. It happened after the regional tournament. I went to mock trial practice and I was standing near the board. I was about to write all the things that I had done really well, which were a lot. Again, I got those 2 awards that I mentioned. And then Brackman came in.
And what did he say?
He started yelling at me in front of the entire team. And it was horrible. He said I was lazy and he said that I didn't work hard enough, that my team wouldn't do as well at state because of my performance.
And how did you respond?
I was embarrassed. I mean, I was being called out in front of all of my teammates, and I was really embarrassed and upset. So I stormed out of the classroom and I went outside.
Then what did you do?
I saw his car and I had a marker in my hand from the whiteboard, and I wrote Worst Attorney Award on his car, and I really regret doing that.
Thank you, Avery. How did Mr. Brackman respond to you writing on his car?
After I wrote on the car, he came outside and he actually started to apologize for telling me off in front of the team, which made me feel worse about it. And then he noticed that I drew on his car, and that is when he started yelling at me, and that he kicked me off the team after that.
What did losing mock trial mean to you?
Everything. I loved mock trial and I was good at it and I liked majority of my teammates, and I was really upset to lose it.
How do you feel in hindsight about writing on his car?
I feel horrible. I was so embarrassed and upset about what happened inside practice that it was a heat of the moment thing, and I really regret doing it, and I tried to apologize to him.
What did you do to try to apologize?
I went in the next day and to his office, and I tried to apologize to him in person. I really wanted to tell him how sorry I was and that make it up to him. And his secretary told me he was busy. He didn't want to see me. So I texted him instead, said that I was willing to work all summer to pay off the car, repaint it myself, literally anything that he asked me to do. I was trying to apologize to him, and he never responded to me.
Thank you, Avery. Now, let's move forward a couple days. What were you doing on March 5th, the day of before Mr. Brackman's death?
I was with Taylor. We were at the Fry Shack.
Did anything happen while you were there?
Yeah, we actually saw the whole mock trial team, which was really hard for me. I had just gotten kicked off the team in front of everyone. It was a whole thing at school and on the team. And seeing everyone there, especially Alex Fuentes, was really hard.
Were you and Alex friends?
No, we were rivals on the team. And seeing her at the Fresh Act, she had kind of taken my spot. We were always kind of competitive, but again, we were rivals, but I was always performed a little bit better. So feeling after being kicked off the team, I felt like my spot had been taken by her, and she was hanging out with all my friends and doing all the things that we always did, and I didn't get to be a part of that. So I got overwhelmed.
Would you ever ask Alex for help?
Ask my mock trial rival for help? No, never.
Thank you, Miss Becker. And what did you do after seeing the mock trial team?
like I said, I was really overwhelmed, reliving the embarrassment of the past few days and my emotions about being asked to leave the team. So Taylor and I left. It was not a situation I wanted to be in. I was very frazzled.
Thank you, Avery. Did you lose your phone that night?
I did lose my phone.
And what were you doing the next day, March 6th?
I was looking for my phone that I lost the night before.
Were you looking for it with anyone in particular?
Taylor and I noticed that I didn't have it the next morning, and so we decided to retrace our steps from the previous day. We went to the mall and the fry shack and called it, texted it, and we never found it. I don't know.
Thank you, Avery. Could I ask, how did you feel upon learning of your coach's death?
It was really hard to hear about Coach Brackman's death. We had always had a strained relationship, but he was still such a big part of my high school career. And I never got to apologize for writing on his car. And I so desperately wanted to make that up to him, and I never got the opportunity to do that.
Have you ever been to Mr. Brackman's house?
No, I don't even know where he lives.
Did you have anything at all to do with Mr. Brackman's death?
No, I had absolutely nothing to do with Coach Brackman's death.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions for this witness at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Ms. Johnson, do you have any cross?
I do. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Good afternoon, Ms. Becker. You went to Colorado High School, right?
I did.
And you did mock trial there.
Yeah, I loved it.
And Coach Brackman was your coach.
He was.
And you succeeded at mock trial competitions, right?
Yeah, I mentioned my awards. I was definitely good at mock trial.
And you succeeded because you were good at thinking on the spot?
Yeah, I was good at it for many reasons, but one of that being one of them.
So you were good at being creative on the spot as well, right?
Well, you have to be quick on your feet to succeed at mock trial.
Okay. Some good qualities of a mock trial student include participating in practice and being focused and attentive, right?
That wasn't how I did mock trial.
But you would consider those some good qualities of a mock trial student?
No.
Okay, let's discuss what you did while you were at practice. Did you talk to your friends at practice?
I often talk to my friends at mock trial, yeah.
Were you on your phone during practice?
Doesn't say that in my witness statement, but would you like me to answer anyway?
Yeah, go for it.
No, I wasn't on my phone. I mean, no.
Okay, Coach Brackman demoted you for poor behavior, right?
Before regionals, yes.
Okay, and did you feel angry after he demoted you?
Upset for sure. I mean, mock trial was my entire life in high school.
Okay, you were mad?
Sure, yeah.
You were frustrated?
Yeah.
Okay, and you testified that with these feelings, you vandalized Coach Brackman's car.
No, I was more fueled of embarrassment for him yelling at me in front of all my friends. Heat of the moment.
Okay, you wrote Worst Attorney Award on the car, right?
I did, and I regret it.
In permanent marker?
I thought it was a whiteboard marker.
But it was in permanent marker, correct?
Unfortunately, it was.
On his white Porsche?
Objection,
Yeah.
relevance.
Counsel, answer?
I'll just move on for now.
Very well.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
After Coach Brackman found out you vandalized his car, he kicked you off the team, correct?
Yeah, he was really upset.
Okay. On another note, your phone was lost on the day of the murder, correct?
Day before. I lost it the day
You
before.
lost it the day before, and then you were looking for it on the day of the murder.
Yes.
Okay. And the day of the murder, you claim to have been looking for it with Taylor Perkins?
That is what I was doing, yes.
Okay. And the day before the murder, you testified that you went to the Fry Shack with Taylor Perkins.
I did do that.
Okay. Did you have your phone at the Fry Shack?
Vaguely remember it. I don't remember any having it after that, no.
Okay. Did you see Alex Cifuentes at the Fry Shack at that time?
Unfortunately, I did, yeah.
And you let Alex Cifuentes play a game on your phone at the Fry Shack?
That's not in my witness statement, but would you like me to answer anyway?
No, it's all right. I have one more question for you, Avery. Do you remember what you said to your mom after the victim dismissed you from the mock trial team?
I don't know. I said a lot of things probably, but again, I was really embarrassed.
I'll be happy to refresh your memory. You said, and I quote, "I would get back at him if it was the last thing I did." No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, if I may perform a brief redirect of Ms. Becker.
Proceed, Mr. Wang.
Ms. Becker, when you told your mom you would get back at Mr. Brackman no matter what, did you mean it?
No, of course not. That was a really emotional day for me. And I said and did a lot of things that looking back, I really, really regret. And that is definitely one of them that I didn't mean.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all my questions.
Thank you, counsel. Based on the cross, any redirect? I'm sorry, any recross?
Yes,
Go ahead.
briefly.
Brief.
Ms. Becker, so you said that you did not mean to say that to your mom on that day, right?
Yeah, I didn't mean it at all.
Okay, so you lied to your mom.
No, I mean, that's how I was feeling in the moment, but I said it in the heat of the moment, and I definitely don't mean the things that I say when I'm emotional.
Okay, but you didn't answer my question.
No, I didn't lie to my mom.
Okay, so you did say that you would get back at him at the last thing you did, and you did mean it then.
I meant it in the moment, but I quickly cooled down after that. I didn't mean that now. I regret saying that.
But that doesn't change the fact that you still lied to your mom.
I wouldn't necessarily call it lying. No.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Are we done with this witness then?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Taylor Perkins to the stand. Good afternoon, Mr. Perkins, or good evening now. Could you state your name for the record?
My name is Taylor Perkins.
And could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, everyone. Once again, my name is Taylor Perkins. I am a former student at CHS, as well as a former student on the mock trial team, and I currently go to CU Boulder.
How would you describe your relationship with Avery Becker?
Avery and I are best friends. She's actually one of the reasons why I joined mock trial in the first place. I definitely would just be playing video games after school if it wasn't for her. But no, we definitely made the team great, and I thank her for being my best friend.
And how else did you spend time with Avery?
Well, if we weren't talking about mock trial or if we weren't working on mock trial, I would definitely be playing video games with her. We would definitely go to the mall, walk around, just high school stuff.
And how long were you on the team?
I was on the team for 3.5 years.
So how well did you know the rest of the team?
I knew them pretty well. I could definitely hold a conversation with each one of them.
And how well did you know Mr. Brackman?
I knew Mr. Brackman pretty well, as much as a student and teacher could get to know each other.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to move on. What did you personally observe about the relationship between Avery and Mr. Brackman?
Well, they definitely had differences in work style. I definitely think that Avery's the type of person that inspiration came to her, and Coach Brackman never really respected that of her. And I think that the relationship was really strained sometimes because Avery had natural talent, and I don't know if Coach Brackman really understood that or not.
Did those strains ever reach a boiling point that you know of?
Yeah, and earlier in the season, about a week before regionals, Coach Brackman actually bumped her down to the B team, which was definitely a really bad decision. And then later in the season, when I was off the team, I heard that she was actually kicked off the team entirely.
Were you there when Avery got kicked off the team?
No, I was not.
But you heard about it from Avery?
Yes, I did. She told me all of what happened. She said that she made this really awful mistake and that she really regrets what she did.
And how did she attempt to get back on the team after being kicked off?
Well, she tried to text people on the team, and she also tried to set up a meeting with Coach Brackman. She was really sorry that she wrote something on his car, and she even offered to like get paint or like try to fix it, but he definitely wouldn't have it. So she tried a lot of things, and it didn't really pan out very well.
Do you know Alex Cifuentes?
Yes, I do. Alex is this stuck-up kid on the team, always jealous of Avery, always trying to suck up to Coach Brackman. She was so ingenuine. It was really annoying.
Do you know if Avery texted Alex in particular?
I'm not 100% positive, but there's a possibility. It would definitely be a last resort, though. They weren't in the best relationships.
Could you expand on why it would have been a last resort?
Well, they were so different, just like Avery was with Coach Brackman, and I just always got the feeling that, Alex was always jealous of Avery because Avery just had that natural talent, and they never really got along. They never really had a good friendship.
All right, Mr. Perkins, let's move on. What did you do the afternoon of Thursday, March 5th?
Well, that was actually when both of us were off the team, and Avery had a meeting with Coach Brackman earlier that day, but that didn't pan out. Coach Brackman didn't really want to talk to her. So after school, we went to the mall, we played our video games, walked around, and we went to the Fry Shack. But that was actually a really bad decision because we ran into the A team of mock trial.
Who did you see on the A team?
We saw just some people on the team. We also saw Alex, which was a little awkward since, she was always jealous of Avery, and I think it really upset Avery because she stormed off to the bathroom. I think she even left her phone on the table, which definitely shows how upset she was. She never leaves her phone on the table.
How would you describe Avery at that moment?
She was really upset. I mean, to see the team that she worked so hard to be on, and now she wasn't on it, and it was really hard for her, especially when Alex was just being so ingenuine that night.
What did you and Alex talk about?
Alex was just saying, "Oh, Coach Brackman is so unfair, or you definitely deserve to be on the team," but it was so annoying, and it just really irked me that night. She was just really annoying.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. The next day, March 6th, what were you doing?
Well, I actually alternate between driving with Avery and driving myself to school. And that morning, we actually had free block first. So I was just texting her to see if she was going to pick me up or not. But she actually didn't pick up. So when I got into the car, when she had finally arrived, we realized that her phone was missing. So since we already took our lit exam earlier that week, we actually just decided to skip school since we didn't really have any important classes. And we decided to spend the day finding the phone.
What did you do to look for her phone?
We retraced our steps the day before. Like, we went to the mall, we went everywhere we walked, where we played our video games, and we also went to the Fry Shack, which was really weird. We saw the mock trial team again. It was really weird.
Why was that weird?
Well, it was weird because we actually went there at the time that they should have been in mock trial practice, and they told us that Coach Brackman actually hadn't shown up to practice. So, like the 15-minute rule, if they don't show up, and you can just leave. And well, later that night, we found out that Coach Brackman was dead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Perkins. I can tell this is hard for you. We can move on if you'd like. More broadly, were you with Avery the whole afternoon of March 6th?
Yes, I was. There was no I had absolutely no opportunity for her to leave. We were so stressed out about finding that phone.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. And after that day, who were you interviewed by?
I was interviewed only by Avery's lawyers.
Was your phone ever requested by the police for searching?
No, my phone was never requested.
Mr. Perkins, what did you promise to in this courtroom?
I promised today to tell the truth about what happened.
And would you break that oath, even for your best friend?
No, I wouldn't. This is way too serious. And the fact that my best friends might go to jail for something she didn't do, it really upsets me. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. No need to tell us anymore. Your Honor, no further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Any cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, Mr. Perkins. How are you doing today?
I'm all right. Sorry for getting a little emotional earlier.
It's okay. Shall we start?
Yes.
You graduated from Colorado High School last year, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you were on the mock trial team?
Yes, I was.
You loved mock trial too, right?
I actually only joined because of Avery, and if it weren't for Avery, I wouldn't have joined. I mean, I don't even want to be a lawyer in real life.
And you were good at it?
I was pretty good. Definitely not as good as Avery, but I wouldn't consider myself bad.
You were on the team with Avery Becker, is that correct?
Yes, I was.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Thank you, counsel. Any reply?
I'll rephrase the question.
Proceed.
On the mock trial team, who was your teammates?
There was a bunch of people. Like you just said, there was Avery, there was Alex, and there was a bunch of other people.
And Avery is your best friend?
Yes, she is.
Both coached by Mackenzie Brackman?
Yes, when we were on A team.
And neither of you liked him?
I would definitely say that I didn't agree with his coaching style. He definitely really didn't respect each individual work style that each student had, and it definitely didn't flow well with the team. So I didn't really agree with his teaching style, no.
So you didn't have a good relationship with him?
I would say that I didn't respect him as much because he didn't really put as much effort as I would liked, and he didn't really respect it as much. But our relationship was meh, to put it at least.
Avery wasn't on time or prepared for mock trial practices, was she?
Sometimes, but I'm not gonna lie, she definitely didn't need to put that much effort in to be the best. She definitely was really talented, and she didn't really need to prepare to be good at the mock trial.
And Avery can be rash and have an inflated ego at times, is that correct?
She can be sometimes. I mean, she's just that type of person, really strong-willed, but at the same time, I think that's one of her best characteristics, that she's really strong-willed and you can always rely on her to be your best friend.
Avery's behavior led to some conflict with your coach, correct?
Not really. I mean, I didn't really appreciate the way that Coach Brackman treated her, and that kind of spilled onto me. Like, I didn't really respect him because he didn't respect her, but I wouldn't say that Coach Brackman and I had that much tension between us, no.
At a practice before the regional tournament last year, Avery was unprepared and was making things up on the fly, correct?
I think that many people might think that, but actually, she was the type of person to have inspiration come to her. And I think that in the heat of the moment, she's really inspired and she's really motivated to make the best of what she has. So some people may think that she was underprepared, but no, she was actually going with the flow, which is her work style and her best opportunity to succeed.
But you still thought she performed flawlessly?
Yes, she was amazing. I was so proud of her.
No, Brackman didn't think that.
No, he did not, which is really surprising.
So Avery got demoted to B team?
She was demoted to B team before regionals. So that's why I actually stepped down, because I realized, I didn't think the team was going to win without her on the team. And, I didn't really like mock trial without her. So I decided to step down to give her my spot because the team really needed her.
She was very upset about that, wasn't she?
She was pretty upset. I mean, she put in so much work for the past 3 years, and just to be demoted to the B team it was really ridiculous. She was the best on the team. There was no way she belonged on B team.
Would you do anything for Avery?
I would do a lot of things for her. She's my best friend.
So you dropped out of the A team to support Avery, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I did what I thought was best for the team.
So you said you dropped out of the team because Avery was a senior?
I didn't do it because she was a senior. I did it because she was the best on the entire team. And because regionals was in the next week, the team really needed her to succeed. And after seeing her performance at regionals, I definitely think I made the right decision.
You would do a lot for your friend, wouldn't you?
I would do a lot of things. Yes, that's correct.
After you dropped out, Avery got into another argument with Brackman.
Yes, that's what I've heard.
Avery wrote on Brackman's card, didn't she?
That's what she told me, but she really regrets what she did. It was definitely in the heat of the moment, and Avery is the type of person that will always make amends after making a mistake.
With a permanent marker?
It was a permanent marker, but she thought it was a dry erase marker.
But it still ruined the Porsche, didn't it?
Yes, and she was really sorry about that. She really wishes she could take it back.
So Avery got kicked off the team?
Yes, unfortunately she was.
But you still thought that was unfair to Avery, didn't you?
I mean, I think it was unfair because, everyone makes mistakes, and she did so much to try to say sorry. She did so much to make amends. And it just really makes me so upset because she has so much talent, and she was the best on the team. And the fact that he would put his ego first and he wasn't thinking of the team at that time, it really made me upset. Yeah.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Any further questions?
Your Honor, may I perform a brief redirect?
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Perkins, what did Avery express to you about her feelings after writing on Mr. Brackman's car?
She was so sorry. I mean, it was like the worst mistakes that she's ever made. And, she...
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Any response?
No response, Your Honor.
The objection is sustained. Move on.
All right, Your Honor. How would you describe Avery after trying to make amends with Mr. Brackman?
She seemed really upset, and she seemed really sad that she put so much time and effort into the mock trial trade, and it didn't really pay off. It was her senior year, and I think she was really sorry, and it was really upsetting that she didn't have the chance to say sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Given the redirect, are there any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. The witness is excused. Thank you, counsel. At this time, are the parties ready for closing?
Yes, the people are ready, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor, the defense is also ready.
Thank you, counsel. Let's go ahead and proceed with closing arguments then.
Your Honor, before I begin, I ask that the remainder of my 5 minutes be used for a rebuttal.
It will be reserved.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I begin?
Yes, you may.
All right. Then I will begin now. Members of a jury, on March 6th of last year, Mackenzie Brackman, a hardworking and dedicated attorney and mock trial coach, was brutally stabbed to death by an intruder who had entered his residence, and he deserves justice. Based on the evidence presented during today's trial, it is clear that Avery Becker is guilty of this crime beyond a reasonable doubt. But people have called you today to convict Avery Becker on 2 counts, murder in the first degree and second-degree burglary of a dwelling. Let me remind you what that means. A guilty verdict on count 1 would mean that Avery Becker unlawfully committed or attempted to commit second-degree burglary, and during the course of that crime, the death of Mackenzie Brackman was caused by anyone. Avery Becker likely didn't enter the house with the intention to murder Mackenzie Brackman. She went to her former mock trial coach's house to play a prank on him, just like she had done before. But what matters is that Avery wrongfully entered her residence and Mackenzie Brackman died. This was a break-in gone bad, and sadly, it went very badly. Nonetheless, Avery needs to be held accountable for her actions on that day, which is why the prosecution presented you with 3 key witnesses. The evidence from these witnesses gives a reasonable account of how the break-in went badly, places Avery at the scene of a crime at the time of the murder, and describes a history behind her tumultuous relationship with Brackman. Detective Jordan Markowitz was assigned to the case. When she arrived at the scene, she witnessed the awful sight of Mackenzie Brackman dead on the floor in a pool of blood. The evidence of a crime scene was indicative of a struggle between Brackman and the intruder. This theory was corroborated by Kyle Kuzak, the crime scene reconstructor assigned to the case. Based on their investigation, we have a good idea of how the murder went down. On March 6, Avery Becker entered the residence and was confronted by Brackman, who had been notified of a break-in by his ring app or by the sound made by the back door. Realizing what was going on, Brackman had hurried to his kitchen to find a weapon, opening his knife drawer and ultimately grabbing a large knife from the knife block to defend himself. When he was confronted by Avery, the two struggled over the knife until Avery gained control of it and stabbed him. In the process, they left scuff marks, a broken plate on the floor, and a knocked over chair, clear indicators of a struggle. Now, how do we know the intruder was truly Avery? The evidence makes it clear that the intruder didn't plan to murder Brackman, which isn't what Avery wanted to do. She wanted to break in and trash Brackman's house, which is why she went in the middle of the day on a weekday, when Brackman usually wouldn't have been home. It's also why she didn't bring a weapon to the scene of a crime. But when Avery entered the residence, her former coach greeted her with a knife. Avery's reaction had serious, irreversible consequences for which Avery Becker, an adult, needs to be held accountable. After the investigation at the crime scene, Markowitz obtained cell phone and cell tower records and used them to track the location of Avery's phone on the day of the murder. Those records indicate Avery Becker traveling from her home to Brackman's residence at exactly the time she would have had she committed the murder. The defense will tell you that Avery lost her phone the day before. That's a very coincidental story, considering that her phone traveled from her home to Brackman's on the day of the murder. They'll say the actual murderer took her phone with them to Brackman's house, but there is no evidence to prove that. They'll also say she had an alibi on the day of the murder, Taylor Perkins. But Perkins is Avery's best friend, who said they would do anything for Avery. There is a final component I want you to consider from today's trial, and it answers the question of why. Why did Avery feel the need to break in and trash Brackman's house? The answer is quite clear. The two had a very volatile relationship during Avery's mock trial career, and Avery did not like her coach. The final straw came when Brackman rightly criticized Avery for being unprepared for practice, and she took it incredibly poorly. Displaying anger, immaturity, and rash decision-making, she grabbed a permanent marker and vandalized his Porsche. Quite understandably, Brackman kicked her off the team, which infuriated Avery even more. She texted Alex Cifuentes for help getting back on the team, and when she said that Brackman wouldn't budge, she told her about her plan to trash her house. And Avery followed through. She got revenge, just not in the way she would have imagined it happening. It was a break-in gone bad. It may have been an accident, but Avery Becker must be held accountable, and Mackenzie Brackman deserves justice. Thus, the prosecution asks you, the jury, to find Avery Becker guilty of first-degree murder and second-degree burglary. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Will the defense go ahead and do your closing statement?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Members of the jury, what we see presented by the prosecution today isn't just an inexcusable accusation flung onto a teenager. It's an exhibition of malpractice, laziness, and sloppiness. The prosecution is right in asserting that Mr. Brackman deserves justice. But this isn't justice. The police did not seek the guilty party out. No. They sought out Avery Becker, arresting her not because it was right, but because it was easy. There were multiple avenues the authorities could have exhausted in their duties. They could have checked Alex Cifuentes' phone to ensure the legitimacy of the supposed text message confession. Detective Markowitz could have interviewed Mr. Perkins to verify Ms. Becker's alibi and that her phone actually had been lost. Yet they never even attempted to contact him or to search his phone. They also could have investigated the criminal former client of Mr. Brackman, Mr. Rollins, a man who, having been thrown in prison by Mr. Brackman, surely has a motive worth investigating. And what do we see the police do? Accuse someone who has already shown great remorse about her difficult relationship with Mr. Brackman, someone who tried to apologize profusely, someone who has an alibi for the time of the murder. And what have the all-assuming authorities done with this treasure trove of information? Nothing. They left it in the dust of their relentless pursuit of Avery Becker. And why did they come after Ms. Becker with such vigor? A tip from a student jealous of Avery's success. And they didn't even bother to investigate Alex Cifuentes after receiving this tip. Surely an accusation of that nature merits some investigation, especially when there's clear friction between Ms. Cifuentes and Ms. Becker. Professor Van Owens has done more to uncover the truth of this case than the police ever cared to, tirelessly searching for evidence, following up on loose ends that the police blatantly ignored, like speaking with Mr. Perkins and attempting to speak with Ms. Cifuentes, and the shaky phone record evidence. Had we seen that initiative from Detective Markowitz, we would have seen a completely different suspect on the witness stand today, and an Avery Becker who hasn't been traumatized by this cruel accusation. Despite what the prosecution would have you believe, it's not a crime to get upset. It's not a crime to have arguments. It's not a crime to have emotions and to be human. And it does not mean that Ms. Becker is a murderer. We must ask ourselves, what have the police proved today? And what do they need to prove? They're obligated to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Avery Becker went to Mr. Brackman's house with the intention of ransacking it, and at some point during the course of that suspected crime, Mr. Brackman was killed. Now, what can the prosecution say? They can say that maybe Ms. Becker's phone could have possibly been near Mr. Brackman's house, a phone that two people testify wasn't even in her possession the day of the crime. Now, what else do we have? We have text message printouts from a phone that wasn't even brought in to check the validity of these texts, a phone that has now been conveniently traded in. This is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. This entire case is shrouded in speculation. Too many maybes, not enough definites. Now, the defense has presented two witnesses who will not only testify that Ms. Becker wasn't near Mr. Brackman's house, but that Ms. Becker didn't even have her phone the day of the murder. The police haven't proved that Ms. Becker broke into Mr. Brackman's house. They haven't even proved that she had an intention to do so. They have not proved that Ms. Becker was even near the house. They have not proved that Ms. Becker even had her phone. The police have proved nothing, nearly destroying the life of a young woman with a bright future because of speculation and guesswork. This is not guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Members of the jury, it's important to recognize that the prosecution came to this conclusion not because it was right or just or fair, but because it was easy. See for yourself and understand that you must find Ms. Becker not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Do you have any other closing remarks, Ms. Jack?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I believe I have 50 seconds, so I will use that time now. It's not an easy decision to accuse a young woman of this crime. It was a decision that had to be made based on the evidence that Markowitz and Cusack used in their investigations and the evidence we obtained from Alex Cifuentes. But I'd also like to point out the fact that Avery Becker is a young woman. She is not a child. She is an adult and she needs to be held accountable for her actions. And let me remind you briefly about this remorse that Avery showed. She wanted to apologize. She wanted to do things to get back on the team, and Brackman didn't meet with her. That was the last straw. That's what prompted Avery to break in and trash Brackman's house like she told Cifuentes she was going to do. So she didn't get what she wanted from Brackman in that instance. And it's very clear that they have no evidence of another person committing this crime. So for these reasons and because of the evidence we presented in today's case, we urge you for a guilty verdict.
Time's up.
Thank you, counsel. This concludes the mock trial competition. We're going to go ahead and give the panel a couple minutes so that they can complete their tallies. And while they're doing that, I'd like to congratulate all of the team members of both teams. You did a very good job considering the different platform that everybody has had to deal with. This is not the normal way of conducting a trial. It's a challenging way to do things when people can't get together and discuss the issues in such a way that it allows a good discourse instead of doing things in this kind of platform. So I want to congratulate everybody for bringing your teams together and being able to perform the way that you did. So I thank you for that. If I could get a message from Amy once all the tallies have been done so that we can proceed with remarks. They're all in?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you.
I'll let you know.
Appreciate it. So I'll go ahead and speak a little bit about trial practice and how well each of you performed in this kind of environment. One of the hardest things to do is to try to have a conversation with a witness that you're only seeing through a screen. It's one of the hardest things that I've seen, and I'm dealing with that kind of thing on a daily basis myself with the parties that bring evidence to our courtrooms. So it's one of the things that is lacking. You don't have that person-to-person contact with a witness. But I think that each of you performed very well in terms of trying to bring out the best out of your witnesses. So attorneys, congratulations with that. I know that how difficult it is to get that rapport with your witnesses. And the witnesses themselves performed very well. So I appreciate that. It's always entertaining to see individuals wrap the facts in their mind and become those witnesses. So it's a hard thing to do. I was not ever able to do it myself. So I appreciate that dedication and immersion of the witnesses going after a role like these. So thank you for that. And while the rest of the panel are discussing, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a judge for several years now. Before that, for 28 years, I was a litigator. And doing courtroom work is never easy. It's a challenge. And I've been part of this mock trial volunteer effort for a lot of years. And I've done everything from recruiting volunteers to going into classrooms to being a panel member as well as a judge, scoring, tallying scores, being the one behind the scenes to do the pairings, setting up panels. So I've been involved in the mock trial program for approximately 25 years now, so a very long time. And it's always amazing to me to see the level of competition at regionals and state and even nationals, the dedication and effort that is invested and put into it. And it's not just you as team members and students, but the dedication and time parents and family put in, and the accommodations that teachers and coaches put in as well. The efforts of all involved are to be congratulated, just because it's such an endeavor for everybody, not just you as the team members. So I thank everybody that makes it possible, especially the bar associations, the regional bars and the Colorado Bar Association, for all the time and dedication that they put over the years into this program. And I think it's a wonderful and very effective way of teaching what courtroom is, courtroom demeanors are, and courtroom effectiveness, what happens within the legal system. So I appreciate that as well. So thank you all for doing that.
Judge Chinrao, we're waiting on one score sheet. So I think you can start with the other three that have turned theirs in, and you can do comments that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and panel members, you know who you are. So go ahead and put yourself
yeah, you guys
on video and
put all your cameras back on, guys, but stay
Yes.
muted.
Yes, put your cameras back on and unmute yourselves. I have to say that there were several instances where I was having a hard difficulty with hearing because there was some lag. So I apologize when I couldn't hear properly. It was kind of hard, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the arguments so that it wouldn't be disruptive. So I know that might have been a little hard for you because I didn't know what you were saying in order to respond. So I apologize for that. So who wants to be the first panel member to address some remarks?
I don't mind starting if that's okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, first of all, I just want to compliment you all. I've been doing this for about 5 years now across the state, just judging as a panel member like today. And it's always interesting and fun and entertaining, and you guys didn't disappoint me in the slightest. I thought everybody was well prepared. By the time the trial was over, I think I had a pretty solid handle on the facts or each side's presentation of the facts. So I congratulate you all for a job well done. I don't think anybody did a poor job at all. And if any of you ever think of having a career in law, I can tell you that it's been very good to me, and I would encourage you all to continue down that path. If I had any constructive comments at all for you to take going forward at a very high level, I think I would say this. First of all, when you're not reading, you connect better to the audience. There were times when it looked like you were glancing down or reading, and whatever you're saying may be fine, but it's not connecting as well, because even on Zoom, and I had no connection problems with anyone, you just don't get that personal touch because you're not making eye contact. So I think, and there were times when it almost appeared, because I was always looking for this, like you were trying not to be obvious about it. And that helped, actually, I think. The less obvious, the better. But sometimes it was just too smooth. It was just too practiced. And again, you don't get that connection. I thought the witnesses were all good, and some of the cross examinations were very good. And at a high level, again, I would want to encourage the witnesses at times just to demonstrate a little bit more backbone. They would say that I don't want to get very specific, like, so is it true that then you don't have this or you do have that? Or that you can't prove anything, or, whatever it might be. If you think that they want you to say yes, as a witness, you should probably say no and try to justify it. Now, I don't know if there's things in the record that you could then be impeached with or something like that. But it did seem like on one or two occasions, the witnesses rolled over a little bit more easily than might have been necessary. Sometimes if you just know they want to say yes, you say no, and then you give a reason, or just say no and let them fumble to ask another question. But on all, I just thought all of the attorneys, all of the witnesses did a really fine job, and I commend you on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Anybody else want to? Go ahead, Julia.
Should I go next?
Go ahead.
So my name is Julia Morgenthau. I am a litigator as well for many years. And this is my second year volunteering in the mock trial competition. And so I watched two of them last year. And I must admit that your performances in total definitely were very impressive. And so I really want to make sure that you understand that me watching you, I was very impressed by your preparedness and by the way that you handled things like objections, and in particular the witnesses, the way that you handled cross-examinations. And I want to make sure that you understand that that's something that is hard to teach. Okay, so I was very impressed by that. And that's also a skill that you should continue to work with, because being able to think on your feet like that is something that's very challenging. And I must admit that I was glad to see many of you be able to respond to objections, and as witnesses respond to cross-examination questions in an effective way. And along with that, my only advice would be to just be confident in that, because sometimes, an objection can take you by surprise, right? If you are giving your direct examination and you're going through your, your questions, and all of a sudden the objection comes and it throws off your flow and you kind of don't know what to say. First of all, you had a lot of the attorneys that were responding to objections had the law in their mind and did a very good job at vocalizing the reasons why the testimony was admissible. When you do that, just take a deep breath and be convincing with it, right? Because sometimes it can feel like, oh, she's objecting. That means something that I said was wrong. And that is just part of our adversarial system, right? You want to just make sure you say, no, and it's right, and here's why. And so that would be my only criticism or constructive criticism is to just show that confidence, because oftentimes that may sway how the judge rules. And also, sometimes that's not what the jury hears, but in any event, the jury wants to see your confidence in that as well. The only other comment that I would make is, well, first of all, I just want to say I was very impressed with both sides really applying the facts to the law and talking about what the elements were that needed to be proved and why, they made their case or why they didn't make their case. The one thing that I really wanted to hear in this trial was more about the distinction between the crime of writing on a car, right, which is vandalism and murder and violence, right? And I think that one thing that could have come out more was how, the things that, excuse me, I'm forgetting her name, not Alex, the other one. Anyway, the things that the defendant did to his car were not violent acts, right? They were meant as vandalism. She didn't tamper with the car. No one was going to get hurt. And I thought that the prosecution did a really good job in the closing statement saying, yeah, she didn't want to hurt anybody. And on the defense, I thought they did a good job of talking about how she regretted scribbling on the car, but I thought more could have come out about how, scribbling on the car is not a violent act. And also, if she really had wanted to go into the house and ransack the place, and she was confronted by the coach with a knife, what would her reaction actually have been, right? Would she have wrestled with him? Would she grab the knife and be like, no, I want that knife and I'm going to stab you? Or would she have run away? Or maybe she would have screamed. Those are the types of things that, in a case like this, I may have wanted to see come out more in the direct examination of the defendant. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Julia. Dawn or Carolyn? Go ahead, Dawn. You don't have your camera on. Okay, I don't think we can hear her. Dawn?
Yeah, Dawn, there's something wrong with your sound.
Okay, well, Dawn is figuring out her sound. Maybe we could go ahead and hear from Carolyn. Dawn, are you ready? Because we're not getting a response from Carolyn either.
She's putting them in the chat.
Oh, okay, I see that now. Okay, so while Dawn is putting her thoughts in the chat,
I just want
is
to
Carolyn available?
Yeah, I don't think Carolyn's still here.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank you guys for being patient with us and, attempting to do this Zoom. I think it went, with you guys, it went as smoothly as it possibly could. So that's fantastic. Judge Tenriero, thank you as always for helping us out and judging. Scoring panelists, we couldn't do this without you. So I just want to thank all of you for making this work because I wasn't sure it was gonna.
And I agree. This is a brave new world. This is happening in every courtroom that I know. We are having to deal with technology that we've never dealt with. We've had to learn. And for us older folk, so to speak, learning new things and new technologies is not an easy thing to do. We don't have that innate sense of knowing how to deal with technology that you younger folk do. So thank you all for the opportunity to see how this works and proceed with the trial. I think it went very well. And I commend the Bar Association for within less than a year being able to, figure this out, figure out how to do it, get it done. And not only that, but put on a great case. I was impressed by the case, so I appreciate that as well.
It was a
I hope
fun
all
case.
of you do as well.
The murder cases are always fun.
Yes. These cases are, the murder cases are always the best ones. The crime ones are always the best ones. Do any of you team members have anything that you would like to say? Go ahead, Morgan.
I just want to say, so this is my first time ever like doing this, and you guys made it so fun. Of course, I'm like talking to my team right now, but also GW, I think that's you guys, but you guys were just so amazing and you made this so fun. And so I just really want to say thank you for that. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you,
Yeah, I
Morgan.
agree. You guys were great.
Yeah, we
Thank
feel
you.
good about all of you. It was like a really good round. And we also appreciate all the judges who watched us and scored us and gave us all that good feedback. So thank you all so much for your time.
You're welcome, Katie. Well, thank you all. We'll go ahead, and unless anybody has anything further to state, we will adjourn and wait for tomorrow to come by. So good luck with all of you, and maybe see you tomorrow. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Amy, for putting this on. Appreciate it.
Awesome meeting you all.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Elsa.
You are so
You're
welcome.
awesome.
I was bamboozled. Could you hear my dog in the background pounding on my door?
No, mine does. Mine headbutts the
My
door.
God, it was so distractive, and I was hoping somebody. I didn't want to turn off the cameras to go and deal with the dog.
I know mine.
I don't know where my family is. Well, what can I say?
Oh no, it went off really well, I think. So that's.
Well, I'm hoping that it did. I was kind of frazzled because I had too many documents up
I know.
and I couldn't find them. I couldn't find what I'd put up. I was still dealing with my work stuff, so I had a whole bunch of things up, and so it was kind of bamboozled. So I apologize for that.
No, you were great as always.
Oh, thank you.
All right, you have a good night.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
See ya.